Hello, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the exogenous theory of money. What is the exogenous theory of money? Well, it's the idea that money is a neutral thing. So it's not determined by the real economy, and it's external, it's neutral, and thus can be controlled and manipulated freely by central banks. The idea was greatly used and tied to the quantity theory of money, which was believed and assumed as if it was set in stone in the 70s and 80s when there was an inflation crisis. Now, it's based on the notion that banks will only lend out what they have in reserves, and this is also called like fractional reserve banking system. That's how credit expands. So thus, if you want to grow, then you have to, through open market operations, put a bit of funds into the public. They will deposit money, that way banks can lend. Now, there's a subtlety. With the endogenous one, each agent is a credit multiplying body, whereas in the exogenous theory, only banks can multiply money, and that's through the fractional reserve system. Each individual cannot do that. It is a market-led understanding, as they state that banks are the best allocators of capital and money. It is not government. Government's role is therefore like open market operations, but when it comes to stabilization, allocation of capital, it's all in the hands of the market. So it's a neoclassical view. Now, you will see my other video on the endogenous theory of money, how this differentiates to the endogenous theory, because the endogenous theory is mainly about money demand that determines money supply, whereas in the exogenous, it's banks and their money supply which determines money demand, and etc. etc. So what about evidence and justification? Well, the main justification that I can talk to you about this, because I'm very much in favour of endogenous, so I don't see much justification for this theory, is the theory of bank behaviour. The theory is generally known as the deposit multiplier, the bank credit multiplier, which I was talking about before. The theory does not necessarily yield to the conclusion that money supply is exogenous, but it will if you assume that bank reserves are exogenous. So it's basically kind of chicken and the egg. You don't know which comes first. And the second assumption is that there's a rigid link between bank reserves and money supply. Obviously, these are far-reaching assumptions, but those are the assumptions. In this theory, the idea is the government puts money into the hands of the public through open market operations, and the public put this into deposits, which the banks lend out, and that's how credit expands. The only other justification is it did help reduce inflation in the 70s and 80s, so it does provide some kind of evidence that control of money supply can be made. Anyway, thank you for watching.